Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pitch Room Africa. Who thinks first? So, today I'm super excited to be joined by Joe Kinvi, but I'm going to tell you all about Joe and the reason why I'm super excited that he's here. And then another thing is my colleague, co host Esther, will not be joining us today, not because she doesn't want to, but life happens. So now to the conversation. So Joe, the reason why I wanted you to be on this conversation so bad, and I think all of you are going to really, really benefit from it, is because I have been following the journey of HoaQ for the last 2 years, and I've been so impressed. Can you actually build a network so powerful that actually give you investment reach to more than 100 companies across the African continent while just building an angel syndicate? So for those of you who don't know what an angel syndicate is, you're going to learn a whole lot about it today. But first, let's hear the man, the legend, Joe Kinvi. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So let me just ask you a straight question. Um, where are you from? And there's a reason behind that question. Originally, where are you from?
I'm from Togo. I was born and raised in Togo. But my family moved to Ireland in the early 2000s. So like my half of my life, well, actually more than the half of my life was lived in Ireland, and but I grew up in Togo. Half of my education was in Togo. Half of my education was in Ireland, and now I live in London. So I moved to London about a year ago, just to build out of here because it just seems to be the best place to be in my life right now.
Amazing. And it doesn't seem like Togo is going as planned for you. You you you
Yeah.
you 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 made a tweet. I don't want to quote you on the tweet, but it is a tweet of disappointment from what is happening in Togo. How were you feeling at that point? What happened, and why Joe decided, you know what, all better off. I'm going to make this tweet.
As much as I don't like to get involved in politics because I don't care too much for it. It's not part of my life mission. It just felt like at the same moment where a place like Senegal appears to be really putting democracy on the map, we're sort of regressing. And now I haven't fully read the constitution, which I will. But what happened was Togo was moving from a presidential constitution to a parliamentary constitution. Now, somebody replied to my tweets and that said that actually it has been done before in places like Germany, Singapore. I think there was a third country. But like these economies are very well established. They've showed proof of growth and consistency. Very very big GDPs. And in my personal opinion, I just don't think Togo is there yet, right? I was saying that my mom, who was born in the 70s, hasn't seen a different regime uh, from what is now in place, right? Now, it's just disappointing when you look around you that there's a lot of change happening. Like change is not always a good thing. Like we've seen what happened in Nigeria, we've seen what happened in the like other parts of the continent, but like my parents haven't experienced change. I haven't experienced change. And as much as I don't want to push for something that might not necessarily be good for the people, a lot of people, especially in Togo, are in a state of apathy. And like what was the new constitution is just pushing the country into a kingdom, which it's very sad. For people who know me, like I'm very enthusiastic about Togo. Everywhere I go, I was on a trip in South Africa with a couple of friends, and I would not stop talking about Togo. And these people were in Ghana, and because of me, they went to Togo, right? And if you look at my LinkedIn, I always try to say good thing about the country, and I believe that Togo is such a great place to be. Yet the image that is being portrayed outside isn't really, what is being politicized. And yeah, maybe it's for the better, but I don't think the citizen believe so. And the country, it feels like we've regressed. in the past couple of days, so if you look at Togo, I left Togo in 2005, and I've gone back regularly. I didn't go back last year, but like before that, I was in Togo at least once or twice a year, and you can see progress, like a lot of progress. We have one of the best roads on the continent. Like, things. There's like you can see hope leaving. It's not perfect, but it felt like we made a lot of progress, especially economically, right? So yeah, can you hear me? Okay, we good?
Yeah, I'm here.
And yeah, I'm just disappointed. I really hope there's a very good reason for it. I haven't heard it yet, but I think I need to go read the Constitution and really see where this group of people are leading us.
What is our duty as operators when it comes to holding our political leaders accountable? And the reason why I'm asking this is because we've seen a lot of situations. You're not the first. I'm pretty sure you're not the last, wherein you're trying to balance the act of selling Togo as against the act of activism. Where do you see operators sitting?
I'm not sure that's our job, right? It's not our job. Our job is to, like me personally, is to really help build something that's great for the people of Africa. Like, I describe myself as a Pan-African. I don't necessarily a Togolese, purely because I actually spend a lot of time in other countries than Togo itself. And like, yeah, I don't think that's our job. Like, the job of the people in power is to have very good infra policies so that we can build on top of that. We can't build a road and then drive on it. That's their job. And I don't think operators have a good role into that. Let me finish. I do believe that we're going to see more and more operators go into government, go into policy, and we saw like Bosun in Nigeria. What's her name? The lady something Lawson in Togo. She's like a minister of digital, and we're going to see more and more. But like, for every Sina Lawson, that's her name. Like, for one Sina Lawson that we currently have, we need maybe like 20 or 30 of them. For a place like Togo, for a place like Nigeria, we need 200, right? But if the policies are not being enacted enough so that the youth can actually build locally, like, we're all going to go. Like, the world is so big and so connected that whenever you have a tiny bit of education, you're going to leave, because everybody's looking out for themselves first thing first. Like, I'm going to take care of me before I take care of the country. But if the country doesn't give me all the resources to build and be great, I'm going to leave. And the good thing is, like, you don't have to go to Europe anymore. You don't have to go to America anymore. Parts of Africa, like, you go to Kenya, you go to SA, you go to Nigeria, even Ghana next door. Like, people can build much, much better lives out of these places than Togo. What can the government do to retain these people and, get them to a stage where they can now go into policy and build? I'm not sure to what extent that's happening. But yeah.
Yeah, is the argument itself not supposed to focus on, because as our role as operators, especially Pan-African ones, or those of us that says we're Pan-African operators, our role is mostly taking best practices across the continent, no?
From where though? That's the question. Like, where are we going to take the best practices from? Like, we're taking it maybe from the West and bringing it back, or it's like, where are we taking it from?
So you mentioned that if you look at Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, all really advanced ecosystem, learning from them and taking that best practice and going back to not so developed ecosystem. Is that not our role?
Yes, but I don't think the not so developed ecosystem are open arms enough to bring us in, right? So like, we're gonna take it to other places that are welcoming us. Like, we need welcoming ecosystems. And I saw something yesterday which is kind of promising. Like, they're starting a Togo band, which is like an angel network for Togo, which is great. But the question I ask is, like, do we have like the policies to actually make this thing work? Do we have the ecosystem? Do we have the rails Do we have the infrastructure to make this thing work? I don't know if we do, but like I'm speaking out of London and I haven't been home in about 18 months. So like I had to go and see it for myself because nobody's making enough noise to tell me that this thing exists. Like I'm not seeing it in the press. So like most of the time if you have to go back to see if something is there, the chances are they don't exist, right? Because every good um, administration, whenever they do something great, they want the world to know. So when the Equinox cable that Google erected through Togo, everybody knew about this, right? And if you go to Togo now, we actually have very good internet compared to a lot of the countries that I've been to. And there's a lot of noise that was made about that. So like if something is happening on the ground, you're gonna hear about it. You don't have to go and try to find out. If you have to go home and find it out, it doesn't.
Okay, so here's another question. So you talk about noise, the essence of noise, and this is a conversation that I had with OM who came to the podcast sometime last year. What is the role of noisemaker in building a thriving ecosystem? Noise making or noisemakers in the media in building a thriving ecosystem.
So like noise can actually be a deterrent to an ecosystem. And we need to like we want signal versus noise, right? We want to see signs of something that's been done. That's better than just making noise and there's nothing at the back of it, right? I don't know if you've ever heard the such a stupid analogy, but it's like coins make a lot of noise. Like if you drop coins, you'll hear it, but when you start dropping notes, which is supposed to carry higher value, like paper notes than coins, you actually don't hear anything, right? So can we, like noise versus signal, can we show that okay, this is actually done instead of just making noise about it? Or can we build first and then make noise? Because that carries substance. Like substance is more important than noise. And the best substance make noise for you, and that noise actually goes on for a long time. So building is more important. Like, can we show proof that this is done? And I think countries like Rwanda are doing that. Like I saw an article recently that the A-Ban carried out the first, cross Africa deal into Ghana out of Rwanda using like, Rwandan SPVs. And this is not like Rwanda is planning to announce SPVs to bring syndicates or bring funds to Rwanda. It's more like Rwanda provided the rails for the A-Ban to actually carry out investment in this company. That is more important than just telling that you're going to do something. Show us the proof, like tangible proof. It's like it doesn't matter how small it is, the proof is more important than the noise. So noise is okay, but proof is actually better.
But isn't that what the hype was about? So there was a hype period in the African ecosystem that actually attracted billions of dollars into the ecosystem. Isn't what that all was about?
I'm gonna say yes, but when we use billions, I think the billions that you're talking about is 5 billion, right? 5 billion is so small in the VC space that
But in
like
Africa,
we know funds. Yeah, like for Africa, fine, it's a lot of money, but in the bigger context of VC, it's actually maybe the right amount of capital to test an ecosystem, right? Like when you look at a place like the UK, you live in the UK, right?
yes.
Yeah, a place like the UK versus Africa, like the UK has the same GDP as Africa, yet the UK attracts, I don't know, like maybe 10x the amount of capital, venture capital Africa pulls. So that should kind of show you how immature that ecosystem is. So like billion is great, but like, to really test something, you have to put a test to it. And that's the same thing that we did when we started investing. We had to try it out, learn and practice, etc. And I actually don't think the African ecosystem is frothy. It just has to go through that cycle. Um, Better companies, bigger companies emerge out of the ecosystem.
You mentioned the UK. Someone will say it might be an unfair assessment because the United Kingdom is made up of 4 countries, and then Africa is made out of 52 countries. So
Yeah.
then, if you're comparing the GDP, it means that even the mere idea of comparing 52 states to just 4 countries and compare that GDP, even if we're at the same level, it actually speaks a lot of bad things about us, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just like the ecosystem is immature. We're just super underdeveloped compared to the UK. The UK I don't think the UK has a date when the states started, right? It's one of the oldest administrations in the world. They have a kingdom that's been around for centuries. Like Africa is, most of our countries got their independence in the 50s and the 60s. So, like, again, I agree with you, it could be a very unfair assessment because of the maturity of the two, like the two blocks.
So let's talk about what will be fair. So today, 5 billion, and that's, let's say that was testing money, right? So, and it
Mhm.
mainly driven by the hype. Let's be honest, the hype plays a big part in that, right?
Mhm.
um how long will it take the continent, from what you're saying and all of the effort that has been done, how long will it take us to get to the hundreds of billions of dollars in VC money?
Well, when you test something, you need to see results, right? And no sane investor will put more money into something that's not yielding results. That's just what it is. So, like, before we get to 10, 20, 50, we need to see what the potential return is on the 5 billion that has already been invested. Because the way VC works is you put money in, you recycle that money, you put it back, and your fund gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So no sane investor will put more money into any ecosystem unless they start seeing results. But bear in mind that, like, the average fund is 10 years, right? That's what your LPs give you to provide return. So, I mean, this cycle started in 2018, 2017. Like, it's
Yeah.
not up until 2027, 2028, maybe 2030 that we start seeing real results. Like, okay, is it a vibe or not? But, like, the question that a lot of people are asking is venture capital the right form of capital for the continent? And the answer is not really. Like, it'll work for some companies. And if you think about the way VC works, is VC is supposed to do two things, right? Initially, back in the 70s, venture capitalists put money into companies so that they can, like, make some technological breakthrough, so that they get to the other side, and then they give them more capital to expand ETC. So, like, VC first, technological breakthrough. The second part is growth, right? That's what that money does. In Africa, name 5 companies that have done technological breakthrough that we haven't seen before. To be honest, there isn't any. Like, everything, like, Paystack was the strap of Africa. Like, every company that you see, they are the X of Y. So, like, if we're not having technological breakthrough, then people are copying replicas, and no shade to Paystack at all. Great company. Um, like, if we can't come up with something new, but we can actually build, then VC is going to come at a growth stage. That's why you see on the continent, there's still a lot of funds that are writing checks post Series A. But all the companies, not very few of them are getting to Series A. The growth capital is there, but nobody's actually making it there. And I just finished an article called The Seed Valley of Death of African Companies, because I think all the companies go and die in this seed valley, right? Um, so the real question is venture capital the right form of capital? I think some of it is needed, but we need to maybe rethink, like, the type of capital the continent needs first. We need to rethink the metrics. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the US DC metrics for a lot of the companies. So there is a lot of, like, trial and error that we're going to go through over the next couple of years before we land on the model. Remember, VC emerged in the 70s. Like, we we're a couple of years behind. So there's a lot of work that we had to go through, I think.
So let's talk about the alternate, source of capital. You've established that VC might not be the right one. I had a guest here um, not long ago, and he was very adamant that African entrepreneurs should be held by the same standards as their counterparts in Silicon Valley. What is your take on that?
What do you mean exactly? Like held to the same standard as their counterpart?
Um,
Like how are
same,
those counterparts held?
same success metrics. You talk about metrics, changing the metrics a little bit. Part of the conversation that we had was about ensuring that even though maybe VC in itself needs to be refined in terms of even
Mhm.
how deals are structured in in the continent, we need to also further understand, or they need to understand that with Africa, especially with everything the entrepreneurs have to challenge and fight against, from policy all the way down to education, it has to be a little bit more patient. But he didn't believe that. What are your thoughts?
Hold African companies to the same standards, and there's a lot of reasons why. But one reason I'm going to give you is expansion. For about a year, I worked on the expansion team at Paystack, and I was there for like exactly 12 months. And one of my takeaways is expansion in Africa is so expensive compared to expanding in the US. Like you're gonna bring your business from SF to New York. It's the same rails, it's the same thing, it's the same culture, it's the same people. Expanding your business from Nigeria to Ghana, different regulatory environments, different rails, different mode of payment, different culture, different people. Like it's costing you nearly the same. You're pretty much starting like a separate business purely because everything is so different. The only thing that's similar, maybe the culture piece kind of very similar, language is similar, but like, Ghana is 70, 80% mobile money, 20%, I don't know, 15% cash and maybe 5% bank. In Nigeria, there's no mobile money. It's cash and banking, etc. So when Paystack was expanding to Ghana, they pretty much had to build everything from scratch. When Paystack was moving to South Africa's like 80% cards. So like it's a whole different infrastructure. I think it was only in Kenya, because Kenya has mostly Momo. They built Momo in Ghana. They have some banking. They built, banking in Nigeria. They have some cards. So I think that's where it wasn't so difficult for the company. So expanding in Africa is such an endeavor that like you have to do it. You have to go through it to know it. And I think the smart VCs really understand. And that's why you see a lot of these Series A, Series B rounds are so big, because just the amount of capital you need, it's not play like it's not child play. So I just don't think you can hold African companies to the same standards as the guys in Silicon Valley, because it's not the same like playing field, not the same.
So you talk about expansion, but there's another thing that is very cool about your experience: merger and acquisition. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go back a little bit to something you said. You said that the average VC fund is has a lifespan of 10 years. Within 10 years, they should start seeing a return. But we're seeing a lot of merger and acquisition happening. Is that
Yeah.
damage control, or is that really and truly something this is really excited about?
I don't think it's damage control. We've seen a lot of M&As, but if you look under the hood, a lot of these M&As are rescue missions. Sorry.
So
Like
damage
one
control
company is dying. Well, no,
from
for
from
who though? That's the thing.
from the public perspective.
No, like I don't think any company goes into an M&A transaction thinking, oh, we're gonna control like damage control. No way. Like if you are an investor and you're talking to these founders, this is their livelihood. This is literally their lives, right? And for them, they're doing what's best for the company. It's not damage control. For the VCs, they're doing what's best for the LP. So everybody's doing what's best for their stakeholders at that moment in time. Very few M&As on the continent are actually profitable. Many of them are rescue missions. And yeah, like it's not as gray as it seems. I'm on the cap tables. I'm seeing all the like what's happening. A lot of companies are selling for nothing. Many of them are selling for shares that are worth nothing. So I don't want to glorify M&As just yet. Don't worry. If I have a great exit, I'll let you know, and I'll actually talk about it because I actually made money. I've been in a lot of transactions that didn't make me any money. So yeah, it's not as glorified as it seems.
So let's talk about making money. HoaQ. I mean, recently you did a review of your financial history, and you were very blown. It came as almost as a surprise to you how much money that you've been able to generate within
Mhm.
your within HoaQ. But before we get to the money, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be excited to hear, why HoaQ in the first place? What makes you jump into this, and what brings together the whole community and says it is time?
Well, I didn't jump into it. Um, and HoaQ wasn't my first community, right? My first attempt at building a community was in 2011 when I started my career. And I quickly realized I didn't really know anything about building or starting a community. I tried again in 2013, failed. My first hint of success at building anything was in 2016 when I helped found it's an organization called African Professional Network. That is it's grown and it's like you can Google it. It's such a great organization. It's a not for profit. Um, yeah, HoaQ was only started in 2020, and we started HoaQ. No, it was never supposed to be a community. It was just like me, Joe, newbie, we wanted to become angel investors. We didn't want to go on that journey alone, and we wanted to find people who want to come on that journey with us. It was actually that simple. And the first HoaQ was 17 people. The second was like a lot less people, and we've done and then maybe for 2 years, HoaQ was just a word of mouth. You join, you tell your friends, "Hey, I'm part of this community. They have really good deals." That's it. That's what it was, and it kind of remains like that. We're more active on socials now, but up until last year, it was just like it was a very close community. And the whole monetization, again, HoaQ was never supposed to be a business. The reason why we started monetizing was because when we set up the company in 2021, we we had I think like 6 or 7 thousand euro of expenses, and we're like, okay, how are we gonna pay for this, right? And we're like, let's just charge membership to people who are already part of it, and we charge transaction fees, da 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 da. And that's how we started monetizing. It was never supposed to be a business. It was like this thing that we're doing now. Newbie and I are incurring expenses. Can we charge some of it back to people who are part of it? And yeah, like I think every year we've at least broken even. And it runs itself. Like it runs itself, and we've iterated with a couple of models. Now we've landed on a flat $100 per year. Everybody pays it. Whenever you do a transaction, you pay a transaction fee. And myself, like I've myself and the team, we've built the technology that HoaQ runs on, right? So like now something that started as it wasn't even a side hustle. It's more like, hey, we have this itch and we wanted to scratch it. Is like it was the first seed of something that we think is going to be much, much bigger than HoaQ. So
I mean, and today the community have grown in its influence. 100 companies later invested in. What is the future like?
mm. The future is actually bright. I think I tweeted it this morning that the future for HoaQ is so bright because we want HoaQ to be that on ramp into angel investing. Like there's a lot of people who want to become angel investors, and we genuinely believe that HoaQ is their first foray into angel investing. We have built a lot of resources. We bring on average one company a week to the community that people can invest in. We do a lot of the work in the back. We have a team that does a lot of the work. But it's just the start of something that's I think is much, much bigger. When you think about like investing, what has been so public and where the noise has been is like angel investing, startups, all these things. When you look at the risk stack of investing, angel investing is literally at the top. It's one of the riskiest, right? Why do people want to go start with their highest possible risk? Like most of the time, they wouldn't even start because they're like, so I'm going to invest $5,000 into this, and my chances of losing money is so high. Why? Right? People like me, like I know the why. I care more about the money, and a lot of people care about the money. But when you really, 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 really think about it, everybody just wants to make money. City, let's not bullshit. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Everybody wants to make money. So while we started with HoaQ, the question is, can we build like infrastructure to present opportunities to anybody, mostly in the diaspora, to invest in a bunch of assets from the lowest risk to the highest risk, right? And you can do this with technology. And that's what I've literally dedicated my life to over the past year. I've been building. And again, it's going to be like the same syndicate model. Me and CD want to buy a place in Sierra Leone. Can we leverage technology to do this thing? Why do we want to buy a place? Property. It's not cheap, but the risk is not as high as investing in a startup. Even if things are going wrong, your house is still there, right? Can we have technology to invest in risky asset classes in different places, less risky asset classes in different places? And that's essentially it. So HoaQ was that seed that we planted. But the truth is, people want to make abnormal return on their capital, and we're hoping to give them the technology to do so.
I mean, let's talk about technology. Something exciting is coming. You're building something really, really amazing. How excited are you, and what is the level of influence are you perceiving this product will have in the investment landscape?
I'm super excited because, again, like, I don't know how people think about going to build something, but like for me, like it's probably the most important thing I could be working on right now. And the mission is like enablement. And the personal bigger mission is to contribute to the economic empowerment of Africans in Africa, right? And I believe that if this thing is done right, we can actually create a new market that didn't exist before, which is, how do we increase the amount of capital flows that goes towards the continent? But more importantly, how do we make sure that the gains come back, right? Because in the VC space, we're not seeing the gains. Like the money is not coming back as we really want it to. So can we build something that enables capital inflow, but also capital outflow? Capital inflow, that money goes in, you invest in a bunch of stuff, you hire people, you create employment, you contribute to the GDP. Capital outflow is, when you put money to work, you really want some return back. And that return has to be better than what you get at your bank or in the UK or the US, right? So if we can build something that works according to these parameters, I think we can create a market that didn't exist before, like completely didn't exist before. But the good thing, and that's so exciting, is us Africans, whether in Africa or the diaspora, we've always been about community. We've done so many things together without any formalities, right? That's why HoaQ has been so successful, because we understand community. We know how it works. We've been doing this. Our grandparents have done it. Can we now take the same model, replicate it across multiple asset classes, leveraging technology, find a way to provide good opportunities for people who want to, go back home without going back home? And the example I always give is like the property piece. Like I travel quite a bit. I know people who travel quite a bit. But whenever I travel, I'm spending $50, $100 a night in Nairobi, Cape Town. Why can't we own these places that we're staying in? We're gonna go anyway. And I'm actually working on a first property syndicate, because we already have the customers. The customers are us. Like I go to these places anyway. So can we now own assets that we're customers of. And then at the end of the year, we can get returns that are better than what I'll get in the UK, putting my money in deposit, 5%, whatever the case may be. And while we're doing that, we're now, creating a job. Like if you have a property in Nairobi, you need somebody to manage it. That's a job that you're creating directly into that ecosystem. And you're now a direct contributor. Like if you and I buy a place in Nairobi now, you have one more reason to go to Nairobi. You have one more reason to go to Freetown. You have one more reason to go to Cape Town. So economic empowerment is happening because you're not flying to this place. And when you go, you're gonna eat, you're gonna spend money, and that money is staying in the country, right? Like what for me, that's so exciting. And I don't see myself working on anything else. It's so important. It's real economic empowerment, and that's the real path to freedom. I don't think anything is more important right now for me. And I've had a look, bro. I've seen at least 1,000 pitch decks. I haven't seen anybody actually build this, or at least try. People try to build like versions of it.
So here's one question, Joe. You've worked so hard. You've worked with you know Paystack. You've done so much work, and now you're entering into something which we all hope is going to change the way we make money. Let's through investment,
Yeah.
right? But you've also
Mhm.
built you and your colleagues have actually built this community and it's growing in influence. So you have tons of experience and information as it stands today on best practices in angel investing. There are people who listen to our podcast who are HNIs who have money in the bank and they want to angel invest. What are your best tips in looking at deals, but also the expectation that one should go in and thinking about investing?
I actually give like every 2 weeks, I give a HoaQ onboarding for people who are new to the community. And I have a lot of tips that I give, but like the obvious one is don't invest into something that you don't understand. So, for example, if you're a doctor or health professional, you ideally want to invest in, something that's health related because you're already in that space, right? Don't invest more than you can afford to lose, which is kind of obvious. Like just start with the lowest possible capital. Like don't jump in. Like dip your toe in the water. Um, but also just start, right? And if you don't start, you're never actually going to do anything. I've heard people talk about angel investing. They've never written a single check. Like, how would you know you're actually good or bad at this if you haven't written a check, right? So get started. Don't go at it alone, and that's what we did. We built a community in the super early days because we just know that we didn't know everything, and like crowdsourcing information, crowdsourcing knowledge is more important than trying to go at it alone. And what I say to people is like just join HoaQ, and if it doesn't work for you, you don't have to. And the beauty about HoaQ is like you invest at your own discretion. We bring you a ton of deals. And if you have specific questions, so for every deal that we bring to the community, we set up a Slack channel for people to ask questions. And like, so yeah, like I always recommend joining. It doesn't have to be HoaQ. Just join a community that can actually help you with this journey. There's a ton of community. There's like one, business angel network in most of the African cities now. And and again, at the end of the day, it's your own money. Like, don't invest in anything that you're not comfortable with. And
So
ask, yeah,
yeah, so I want to join HoaQ. Where do I find
mhm.
HoaQ? Not
It's
everybody.
a
Again, before you answer that question, not
yeah.
everybody have access to Joe, and not everybody that send a message to Joe responds to. But the
I
that
respond to most. I respond to most things. I try anyway.
I mean, you do. I can vouch for that. You do. But that's the standard, and I think you know this. A lot of people, investors, operators, ecosystem, especially those with some amount of influence are incredibly difficult to even say hi to anywhere, to be honest, and then expect a response. And you can understand because these people are usually seen as dollar sign passing around, and so they receive a lot of unwanted approaches. But someone is
Mhm.
out there. They want to join HoaQ. Where do they find you, and how do they become a part of the community?
It's very simple. It's hoaq.co. Most of our social is HoaQ Club. Myself, like I'm actually more accessible than you think. And everybody who reaches out to me, my question is, are they a potential customer? So like, if you're reaching out to me, I'm selling to you. So I'm very open to people reaching out to me. And if I can't help you, I'll probably direct you to somebody who can help you. Um, and for funding, like we have a very clear process for people who are looking for funding. We have a link on our website where you can actually just fill the form and then we'll reach out. We do reach out and we have a team that does that work. Um, yeah, like I'm on socials, Joe Kinvi in most places. Like lucky that my name's still out there. Don't think Kiwi is very, it's a very popular name. So like Joe Kinvi on my socials, Joe Kinvi on my LinkedIn. And yeah, like if you're building something exciting, do let us know. Go to our website, fill the form. And even if it's a no, we'll let you know. The challenge is we do get a lot of applications. So like we might not reply as quickly as you would want us to do, but we do look at, everything that comes our way.
So, as we wrap up the conversation, it's been such a privilege to have you, Joe. Before you go, just a final question. And I'm asking you this
Mhm.
question because most times before our episode, we have members of our community sending questions that we'll get to read to our guests. So, I'm just going to read this question. It says, I'm going to add context. A lot of people are investors, but their investment is limited through their social media posts on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Hardly do you see these people actively document companies that they have invested in. What would you say to people like that? And what are the risks of such behavior in angel investing as a whole in the continent?
Wait, let me understand the question properly. So these are like what's my feedback for people who make investments, but they don't
So
publicize the companies that they invested in?
no, so I think the context here is there's a lot of social media investors.
Mhm.
Just to summarize, people who says they are investors but they've never written a single check. I think you mentioned something like that. Talk about
Yeah.
a lot of talk about angel investing, but they've never really written the check themselves. So what are your advice with behaviors like that? And more specifically, what are the risks in engaging in such behavior? And I'm just going to add one more thing on top of that, Joe, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Joe, just one more thing on top of that, if you don't mind. Um, so that's one part of the question. And the next thing I'll ask is at what length, at what length does one have to go to be profitable with angel investment? Because it's the riskiest, and you mentioned that. So at what length
Yeah.
one have to go to be profitable with Indian investment, especially in the continent, right? We're talking about Africa here.
So the first part of the question is essentially like this is for founders, right? When you're reaching out to somebody when you're reaching out to somebody who you, is claiming that they're an investor, like the first thing you want to ask them is like, hey, can I see your like what's your portfolio so far? You want to do your research first and foremost. And then the second part is just ask the question like, are you actively deploying capital? And I'm going into a fundraising mode, and that's the question I ask because like the people I'm talking to, I probably know them. And the question is, my guy, are you investing? Like it's a very yes or no answer, right? They'll tell you whether they investing or not. Very, very, very simple. And the second part of your question is about profitability in angel investing. When you look at the metrics, I think like apparently it's like 1 out of 20 of your investments will work out. Like that will pretty much return your entire investment. So if you've done a 21K checks. One of them will return the entire 20K. And then maybe like one will probably bring you maybe a 10x, 5x. And then, the rest will maybe give you back your 1K, and maybe like at least 50 or 70% will just evaporate. So you need to do a lot of these to see a return in the long run. And like you should also give it like at least 5 years to see a hint of potential return. So yeah, like the stats are out there, do your research. 1 out of 20 will return your entire capital. And if you write 19 checks and then you're like, oh, that's 19, just one more. Maybe that one more is not the 100xer, right? So yeah, like it's a numbers game, and the more checks you write, the higher your chances of returning capital is. And like diversification, I know people who write you know checks in just one industry. I don't think it's a good idea, because if you're investing in just one industry, you're not learning about other industries. When you're starting, you want to invest in something that you know, but over time, just for education's sake, you want to start touching like other industries so that you can learn, and hopefully that's that industry that's going to return capital. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. Like volume, it's a numbers game, I think. Yeah, like I've done about 40 investments into deals, and I think my portfolio is at about, on paper, about 3x, which is decent. But again, paper return and real return is not the same thing. So maybe ask me again in 2 years' time. I'll tell you which one I have, return my money back.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us today. For those of you who have been listening, I've been having a conversation with an amazing person, someone who built a community and have grown in influence, but also someone who is actively advocating on how all of us can make money a little bit better and in a much safer way. Look out for his amazing product that will be coming out soon. But if you want to be a member of HoaQ, don't forget you can look them up on social media of HoaQ. And I promise you, Joe is one of actually the very few people that will actually respond, or at least try to
I
respond.
do.
Give him some time, but he will definitely
Yeah.
respond.
For people who want to learn, even if you join HoaQ, right, and you don't like, we charge a membership fee. Even if you don't want to pay a membership fee, I do an onboarding class every 2 weeks, and I'm happy to just tell you like more about this space. And yeah, hopefully I'll help you, get off the fence, but it's out. Yeah, I think this really helps people just pick a side. Like, what are you like? This doesn't work for me, because as part of this class, I tell you the successes and the failures, right? And there's more failures than successes. So it helps people get off the fence. And
Well,
I'm happy to give anybody 15 minutes of my time to chat about this.
well, there you go. It's been such a privilege, Joe. Thank you very much. Until next time on the
Nice.
Picture, I've been your host, CD Sako, and I've been joined by the wonderful today. Well, he said he's leading the team at HoaQ, but he's one of the founding partners at this amazing community, Joe Kinvi. Thank you for coming, Joe.
Thank you for having me.